Warning, F-bombs are armed and will probably be dropped. Over the last week or so, month really, Virginia has declined into ridiculous anarchy because the governor has decided to declare it, and Iran has decided to threaten the United States. So, let's get into it. Alright, first is Virginia. I really don't know what the governor and legislature of Virginia were thinking, but they decided basically that they were going to ban all guns. That was stupid. Apparently yesterday they decided that they were going to outlaw gun ranges as well. They made marching or drilling as a paramilitary illegal. Basically they've made everything illegal except breathing. And I'm not too sure about the last one either, to be honest with you. On the plus side, first of all but I think that 6 of the counties have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary county status, which good for them. It has no actual enforceable legal standing. More importantly, last count, I think it was 4 of the sheriffs have started working on some sort of volunteer civilian paramilitary that would still answer, by the way, to the sheriff. Now there is a nice little word that us 80s and 90s survivors cringe every time we hear this word. But it's real and it applies here. Militia. Every county sheriff has the the authority to call up the militia for their county, which means every able-bodied male, usually from 18 and up, a few say 16 and up, and I think there's a couple of the original 13 states that say 14 and up. I would definitely qualify. My old man, despite being in his 70s, would barely qualify. I know all of my siblings, my cousins, nieces and nephews, and half of my own kids would qualify. And they can do that. As a matter of fact, it's not constitutional law, because the Constitution says the governor can call up the militia. But the application in the 1700s when it was written was that the sheriff would call up the militia on behalf of the governor. But that's not really important here, is it? Because what is important here is that the federal law was passed that made every sheriff that county's emergency services coordinator. I believe that's the correct term. In the event of an emergency, the sheriff is a local dictator. Now, that dictatorship only lasts a little while, and the governor can come down and say, yeah, you've abused your authority, you're done now, go away. And then it becomes a court fight. If the sheriff really has abused his authority, he's probably going to end up in prison. If he hasn't, he's going to be reinstated. The governor's going to be out of office by the end of the term. That's the way it is. And if it's bad enough, the governor might be the one in prison. So good luck with that, Governor Northam. You're not going to win that fight. The sheriffs of Virginia do have the authority to call up their militia. Good job. On a related note, Iran thought it'd be funny to fuck with the U.S. since 2003, and actually 2002, but most of us forgot that, and I forgot exactly what did happen. Had something to do with Tora Bora, though. so far they always been these, little things, right? We'd miss them. We wouldn't notice them. Little things like giving roadside bombs and very specific types of roadside bombs. It's a penetrator formation something. Basically, it's a copper cone with a powder charge behind it. When the powder charge goes off, that copper cone goes flying forward, literally inverts, and then becomes an armor penetrator. They gave thousands of these things to ISIS in the 2003-2008 conflict. There are hundreds of Americans dead because of those. Iran also gave ISIS Iraq's old chemical weapons, mobile chemical weapons equipment. The mobile chemical weapons equipment that supposedly didn't exist and that everybody knew had been run to Iran. Yeah, they turned around, refitted them as mobile oil refinement equipment, which really is just changing fittings, valves, pressure gauges, sometimes the heating equipment, depending on the kind of chemical weapon it used to be producing, it may need to be cleaned out, and the tanks welded to bifurcate somehow. That's VX versus oil, by the way. So yes, I actually do know what I'm talking about here. Yeah, that chemical weapons equipment. Chemical weapons equipment that supposedly never existed was back in ISIS's hands. We blew them up in 2014, 15, and 16, I think. No, 16 and 17. We blew those to Kingdom Come and back. That's what ended ISIS's control over northern Iraq. The common now Iran is attacking the U.S. and Iraqis again. They actually sent their chief of the Quds force, and this is not some nobody, right? First of all, this is their CIA, big chunk of their equivalent of FBI, and this is all of their special forces. All Quds all special forces in Iran report to Quds Force, which is the Central Intelligence Agency, plus it has a huge domestic mission. The guy that ran that was in Baghdad. Now, what was he doing in Baghdad? At all? Not too hard to figure out. He was down there organizing anti-Iraqi forces. All right, it's impossible to come to any other conclusion because there is no other conclusion to come to. He wasn't down there on a sightseeing trip, for God's sakes. And oh yeah, about a half a dozen of the other top leaders in Iranian intelligence were down there at the same time. What were they doing down there? They were buying Iraqi politicians. Get real. Right. Ralph Northam is a leftist Democrat. And now that Donnie has told Iran, you're not going to be invading Iraq today, the left has exploded. Common theme. Leftists are mad. You know what? I'm happy with it. All right? I can honestly say, not all liberals are idiots. Not all conservatives are geniuses. But all leftists are liars. I can't even say all extreme conservatives, right-wing, are liars. There's a few that are absolutely honest, and that's the only thing they have. They have no common sense, but they do have honesty. that every extreme every extreme liberal leftist is a liar. And please do argue with me about this, because I used to run in a lot of those circles. I knew some of these people, all right? They're liars. That's the only thing they know how to do. It's sad, but it's true. How is Virginia going to play out now? It's been floated that the National Guard might be used. I'm asking the members of the Virginia National Guard, if you're so dedicated against this process that you refuse to report, don't refuse to report. Just cross the border into Maryland. All right? The military does not make law. You are not lawmakers. And this is not a junta. So just cross the border, join Maryland National Guard. All right? If you are so loyal to the state of Virginia that you're willing to go door to door to confiscate guns, good game, bro. See you on the other side. All right? Virginia sheriffs, please continue forming these militias, because you have the authority to do that, and the governor can't do anything about it. There's nothing he can do about it, especially since the story that's starting to come down the line is that maybe this is all about one city that wants the gun ban. Well, Q, you don't rule the entire state. And it's not Richmond either. I forgot the name of the city rather. But I do know it was one city that seems to be maybe out of control, or whatever the hell their problem is. The whole rest of the state, including the county that Richmond is in, is saying, no, go away. Fuck you. You're not running this state. Right? So, sheriffs, keep that up. The rest of the people refuse to comply. What are they're really going to come after all of you? No. I used to, for about 6 months, I used to take 10 AR-15 80% lower receivers in a jig. Just, it was a big piece of plastic, about yay big, goes over the 80%. And I would drive a U-Haul into California and take usually about 10. There was one time I took 25 in. And I would deliver them to people I knew. I didn't sell them, right? But I would deliver them to people I knew. And I would give them my jig, well, I'd loan them my jig, I'd give them their 80%. I'd go outside and get a cigarette. And when I came back, the 80% was gone. The jig was sitting right there until one guy screwed up and ruined it. And that's what I did. Now, what they did with that equipment, I don't know. I don't ask. I think I know. But, you know, and intellectually, I know they finished it out. I know under California law, you're supposed to take it to the county sheriff. They put a serial number. Well, that serial number is not actually legal, so I'm not sure what the state of California is doing there. But they're out of control anyway, so who cares? But yeah. If you are in Virginia and you don't have a criminal record, or you're otherwise prohibited by federal or state law, get an 80%. Bare minimum, get an 80%. Legally, it's just a paperweight until you finish it. As for Iran, I want nothing more than to see the commissioning of the Sea of Iran. And if it has to be irradiated to do so, fine, so be it. I have hated Iran now for 2020 now, 2010, 2000, 1990, yeah, 30 years, 35 years, closer. All right, over a quarter century now, I've hated Iran. Now, most of that time, I just didn't like them, but I didn't really care too much. Come around the time I graduated from high school, which was 94, I started getting the hint that these were not good people. These were bad, bad, bad. These were not nice guys. Here we are 30 years later, and they're proving that they're just plain old thugs. The only way to end that kind of threat is to literally kill them all. When I say the Sea of Iran, I mean bomb them until the current country of Iran is 20 feet below sea level. And when I say irradiated, I mean nukes, if we have to do it that way. If it takes nukes to blow those 20, 30,000 foot mountains into the ocean, cool, no problem. Literally remove the country from the face of the earth. Now, there's a lot of people that are a little more level-headed and just say regime change. We'll change the regime. No, that old ideology will survive, and that's the problem. And then they'll come back, and they'll try to take over again. And sooner or later, they will succeed. And we know that because that's the problem in Afghanistan. The reason we're still in Afghanistan now is because the Taliban wasn't wiped off the face of the earth. And by the way, my partner is Afghan. She's from one of the northern villages, like another 5 or 10 miles, something like that, west. Her village would have been in Northern Alliance territory. Unfortunately, they weren't. Maybe it was 20 miles. I don't know. I'll ask her. That's not the point here. The point here is she was in Taliban territory. The Taliban is going to keep coming back and keep coming back because it's not a people, it's not a race, it's not a state, it's an ideology. And the only way to kill an ideology is to literally kill everybody who has it, who's heard it, who believes it, and you've got to hang them or burn them alive. That works too. If even one Iranian Islamist really survives, the ideology survives, and they will come back. That means they're children, right? Us Westerners think of it as, you don't kill the kids. Well, this time you do. You have to kill off them, their wives, their children, their dogs, their sheep, their goats, their trees, everything. The war with Iran and the Taliban and the rest of them is not about Western culture versus Eastern culture, all right? Or Western values versus Eastern values. This is about the survival of humanity. Because if the Islamists are not erased from the face of the earth, listen to me very carefully here. If the Islamists are not erased from the face of the earth, killed to every last one of them, they will come back, and they will come back, and they will come back until they have finally secured the victory. They will then impose Sharia on the entire world. That will end the development of any kind of space program, because that didn't exist in Muhammad's time, so it's not going to be allowed in the future. Now, they allow for weapons, and they might allow like weather satellites and small stuff. By and large, they're going to kill any kind of space program. And in 10,000 years, when the sun is getting ready to kill us all, and we should have already left this planet and started moving on, we won't have any kind of program to depend upon. It'll take decades at least, and by the time we figure out anything again, even enough to get to the moon, it'll be too late. We will die on this planet as a species. We'll have about 20,000 years at that point, and then very quickly over the course of about 1,000 years, we will go from, gee, it's hot all day, every day, to the sun's chromosphere, entering what used to be the Earth's atmosphere, except the atmosphere is gone now. This is not about fighting a war to stop Islamism. This is about saving humanity itself. And I know that there's going to be some people who are saying I'm being an extremist and hyperbolic. I am not. If anything, I'm being restrained and moderate. It is time to destroy Iran and all Islamists, and that means the Sea of Iran and the irradiated Sea of Iran, if necessary. It is time for Governor Northam to admit that he was wrong, he was never right to begin with, and to step down rather than be removed in irons as a terrorist sympathizer. And it's time for all of the extremists to come back off the edge and start asking themselves, how did I get here? Let's not wait 20 years until World War III is over to figure out how we got here. Because World War III is right now shaping up to be US versus Iran, Russia, China, and a civil war at the same time. I heartily assure you, first of all, that Einstein was wrong. World War IV will not be fought with sticks and stones. And we're still, the ideology behind the Islamists that killing yourself to kill the enemy is a good thing, will not get the results that they're looking for. They will all die. That is it. And I personally may be dead. I'm okay with that. But the West will still be standing, and how hard it will be to rebuild is the only real question to be asked. In the meantime, keep calm and manage to carry on.